Chad says his heaven experience catapulted his healing ministry. Tell me about this experience. What did you see?
So this was back in 2005. I'd been praying for an extended amount of time, just seeking God about some things. And one night, I laid down to go to sleep. I opened my eyes. Next thing I know, I'm in heaven. And it wasn't just a thing, I think I'm there, I feel like something. No, I'm there, just as real as you are with me right now. I see Jesus standing there. I see all the beautiful things. But the first thing I truly noticed was the way that I felt. And it was two things. There was a peace I'd never experienced before. I mean, just peace. But the other thing was, there was just a flow of power that like electricity, just a current, just flowing on the inside of me. Almost kind of like if you get a TENS unit, you know, that physical therapists or others use. It was literally like that was happening. Just woo, woo, woo. Every time I talk about it, I start I go back to that moment. You feel it. And I began to sense that. And at that point, there was a crowd of people that began to run by and say, it's time to go to the throne room. It's time to go to the throne room. And they began to take off. Well, you know, I don't like to lose. I want to be up front. And so I take off running and getting in front of them. We ran up this large staircase, get up to the top of this staircase, open this door, and there's God sitting on his throne. This circular space. He's sitting on his throne. I can see everything of him except from the nose up. And it was this wonderful, wonderful experience. But it truly changed my life, revolutionized the way that I look. Because not only was God more real to me, not only was heaven more real to me, but it was this experience of this power that was flowing through me. It's the life of God that flows on the inside of not just me, but every single believer. That God, the life that flows in him, he put that life in Jesus, we see in John chapter 1. And Jesus came so we could have that same life too. That he didn't just come to take us somewhere, he came to get him on the inside of us. And that healing power that John G. Lake called it the lightnings of heaven, the lightnings of God. That it flows on the inside of me so that it's not only there to keep me walking in divine health, but also that me as the everyday believer, so I could go and I could give that life away, and that what flows in me would flow into that other person. You see it in the ministry of Jesus, you see it in the ministry of Paul. The subject of the life of God, it's in the Old Testament, it's in the New Testament. There are things that are available to us as Christians. We have so watered down what salvation is all about. And if we would just look at Jesus as the standard for what is available for us.
But wait a second. You went to heaven. You saw things that few people see. You were hit with the lightnings of God. When you teach on this, do you and others start moving the same way? Or do you have to go to heaven to get that?
No, we start experiencing it. Like, we go and we do these healing conferences and seminars and stuff. When I begin to teach on that, and I teach it from a twofold purpose. Number one, it's so you can walk in divine health and healing, but it's also so we can turn around and we can give it away. Because that's what it's about. It's the everyday believer, not the apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher, the everyday believer doing the works of Jesus and giving this away. And every time we teach on these things, miracles start happening.
Give me an example.
Okay, just this past summer, I was up at a church up in Michigan, and there was this couple sitting on the front row, and at the end of the service, they come up to me, and the husband says, "Now look, Chad, I want to let you know I'm Episcopalian." And he said, "But I saw you when you were on Sid Roth last time." And he said, "I was really interested in some of the things that you talked about." And he said, "So we've been kind of following along." He said, "While you were teaching," he said, "my shoulder got healed." He said, "I had torn my rotator cuff about 20 years ago." He said, "I've had no movement in it. When I want to move my shoulder, I lift my arm and put it back." He said, "When I was sitting there, my leg started to itch. I reached down to scratch my leg, realized my arm was healed." At the same time, his wife, who had been diagnosed with cancer, 6 months prior, she'd been diagnosed with cancer. This is at the end of the service. She comes running from the lobby to me, tears coming down her eyes. She said, "Chad, I've got to tell you what happened. While I was standing out in the lobby," she said, "I got healed." I said, what are you talking about?" She said, "I had a tumor the size of a softball in my neck." She said, "Look." I said, "What am I looking at?" She said, "It's not there." She said, "I'm touching my jaw for the first time in 6 months." That was on a Saturday night. On Sunday morning, she comes up to me and she said, "Oh yeah, by the way, this morning I woke up and the 3 tumors that were on my back are gone."
You're saying you have no doubt that you are not special, but that anyone can have that special person with knowledge of the Word and operate the same as you.
Absolutely. People are always looking for excuses. You know, people are like water. You just kind of go down the path of least resistance. But I blame it on most of the ministers, because most of the ministers are looking for these excuses because they're not seeing anything. So instead of humbling yourself and say, "All right, Holy Spirit, where am I missing it?" we start looking for excuses, and that's where the labels come from, and we put, you know, these giftings and these graces on all these other people, and certainly not denying the ministry gifts, certainly not denying the gifts of the Spirit. But I don't view some of the gifts that operate in my life to put me in a position where I'm something special. I view it to put me in a position to show people what's possible so they can walk in it too. Because the moment I do that, I set myself apart. But that doesn't follow what Jesus said. He said, "Whoever believes."